Hey there, David Chesworth coming to you from the beautiful Hilton Head Island at Hilton Head Health, and today we have another exciting episode of Health Talk. Today our guest is Tracy Mann. She's a registered dietitian who specializes in hormone health. She has a passion for building relationships and helping others. She's the founder and owner of Everyday Nutrition. She has a bachelor's of science in nutrition and is also a master's in nutrition and dietetics and has worked with the University of Nebraska Medical Center. Throughout her career, she has discovered her passion for serving women with hormone issues and went on to open her own practice, which is Everyday Nutrition. At Everyday Nutrition, she assists women holistically with hormone balance and overall health through improved nutrition and lifestyle choices. She specializes in PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is a misunderstood disease that requires ongoing support to achieve maintenance. She has helped numerous women reduce or eliminate their symptoms without the use of hormonal birth control. So she has helped several more achieve pregnancy without medical intervention. She helps women of all ages naturally manage PMS, acne, cycle health, fertility, weight, and much more. So Tracy, that is a wealth of information that I feel like you're going to share with us today. Did I miss anything about that intro with you?
No, I think you covered it all.
Excellent. Covered it all. Well, so Tracy, can you please share with us a little bit more about what got you interested in this career path?
Yeah. Well, I've always been interested in health and wellness and nutrition, just being a high school athlete. And I got sick in high school and started to just see how nutrition played a role in those illnesses and also how they impacted my nutritional health. But where I kind of landed on what I do now really started about 5 years into being a dietitian. Um, I I was hearing and seeing a lot of clients with this condition called PCOS. I had no idea what it was or how impactful it was on women's health until I started to investigate a little bit more. And I was very frustrated that the main medical treatment was hormonal birth control. I was like, there has to be some other ways to help manage all of these symptoms. And so that's what started my deep dive and really started forming my passion for helping others.
So I'm sure we'll get more into this, but what are some non-medicinal hormonal ways to treat PCOS?
Yeah, I like to approach it from a foundational hormone approach, which is really insulin and cortisol. So, cortisol, a lot of people I think know, is related to a stress response in the body. And insulin is the main hormone that helps regulate our blood sugars. And when we start to have some inefficiency occurring with insulin, it leads to a lot of the symptoms that women with PCOS have. And what I'm learning as I continue my dive into women's health is it actually impacts a lot of symptoms that women, even without PCOS, have.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
so in a lot of cases with PCOS, it's really driven by an insulin imbalance. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, about 70 to 80% of women diagnosed with PCOS have insulin resistance.
And is that to your knowledge, is that a cause and effect? Like the insulin resistance leads to the PCOS, or does the PCOS result in insulin resistance?
It's still a little bit of a gray area, but my clinical and critical thinking leads me to think that insulin resistance kind of leads to PCOS, but there's nothing in the literature right now that actually indicates a cause for PCOS.
Okay, so that's still an uncharted territory of things to learn. See, so for anyone listening who maybe doesn't fully understand when you say macro balancing, can you explain a little bit more what you mean by that?
Yeah. So macronutrients are nutrients that provide energy. We call it calories, but really it's just energy to our bodies. And those macronutrients are carbohydrates, fat, and protein. And the body is designed to handle basically a certain amount of those macronutrients at certain times to help extract energy to fuel your body. And with our standard American diet, a lot of times it's super heavy in carbohydrate and maybe super heavy in fat, but not enough protein coming in. It's really popular now for people to trial the really high fat diets and try to eliminate carbs as much as possible. I don't like any of those extremes because the body needs all of those coming in. It really functions optimally when we're getting a nice balance. So I, at the basic level, you just don't want to overeat one certain type of a nutrient at the expense of another.
So I'm really curious, as a registered dietitian, how much of what you teach and help your clients with it comes from general guidelines that works for most people versus time spent individualizing and tailoring their program, and for the second part of that, how do you go about individualizing and how much individualizing happens?
Yeah. Anytime I have a new client, I really like to start with the basics. Most people at this point, when they come to find me, I'm not their first attempt at trying to make some changes. They've either, tried an online program or they've just, been scrolling socials for the last couple of years trying to glean all of this free information. And it's not that there's always bad information. There's sometimes people that even I follow, I don't really always agree with what they say. But I think somebody coming in brand new, we have to start with the basics. And then as I work with a client, we start to individualize based on labs, based on symptoms. One of my
Mm-hmm.
favorite things actually to do is work with clients one on one to customize their nutrition because I feel like in the traditional healthcare setting, that time isn't usually given to clients. Even in my past experiences working in a hospital setting or even an outpatient setting, those relationships are really hard to build because they just kind of view them as a one-off session. See you later. Good luck. And I really like to spend a lot more time working with my clients.
So we're very similar at Hilton Head Health with our guests. We're very similar in our approach in that we start with, these are the general recommendations that work for most people. Our director of education here, his name is Bob Wright. He refers to, because we live on the East Coast, so he refers to these general recommendations as the I-95 of nutrition. And the reason he calls it that is because everyone's got a destination they're going to. And if you're on the East Coast and you're starting, let's just say you're starting in the Southeast and you're going to the Northeast, at some point, what road is anyone going to get on? I-95. And that'll get you most of the way there. But then at a certain point, to get to your specific goal, you're going to have to take an exit and you're going to have to take specific roads and different turns to get to your specific destination. And that's where working with a registered dietitian can really come in handy, is not only to help you get on the I-95 of nutrition, but then to help you find your exit and find your roads and get to that destination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to tell people getting started is not the sexy thing. It's not the attention grabbing headline that you might see on a blog post or in a social media post, but it's what's really going to build the foundation to make tweaks on. And I don't like the approach of like, we have to have this super crazy way to start so people feel like they're making this big change because nobody sticks to it. And so I think
Right.
people who really care about a client's long-term success will start with the basics. That I-95, I like that.
Yeah.
Huh? I might say the same for like I-80.
No, there you go. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Because
east west.
yeah. There you go. So you'll have your own main road because you're out in Colorado. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Colorado.
Yeah.
So, So I'm coming to you. I'm a client of yours. We're just getting started. What would you say? I mean, you mentioned macro balancing.
Mhm.
What are some key behaviors or key habits that you might reinforce or strategies that you would consider part of the your foundation?
Yeah. I always talk about food timing with clients. I know intermittent fasting is a really popular thing right now. There are some people that really benefit from eating like that, but I feel like most clients coming to me are their bodies aren't ready to start any type of
Mm.
fasting yet. I feel like our cells need a little bit of time to ease in to a form of fasting. And honestly, with PCOS specifically, I don't think fasting is an appropriate mechanism to use. So, why do we talk about timing of eating? It really goes back to that foundational hormone of cortisol because our bodies need fuel coming in to function. And if you go too long, the body's going to start to spike cortisol, which tells your liver to dump glucose so that your body can get some of that energy coming in. Well, that glucose dump is going to lead to an insulin spike. And if you have insulin resistance, insulin won't do its job the way we want it to. It's not going to get energy into most of our cells that we want energy in. It's going to take it to fat for storage. So we have to stop it at that cortisol point first. So just general guidelines, and I'm happy to share this with your audience because I like to share. Try to eat within the first hour of waking, and then try not to go longer than about 4 or 5 hours between meals because that's when the body is going to start to sense a little bit stressed. And then try to be done eating by 7 or 8 p.m. so that you can do a nice overnight natural fast, the way our bodies were designed to fast, so that you can be ready to fuel it again in the morning.
Gotcha. So specifically for somebody with PCOS, that fasting can actually exacerbate the stress response and further fuel the PCOS issue.
Yes.
That is fascinating. I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
fascinating. Yeah, that's
And
that's why we have experts like
I
you.
know. Well, okay. Now, when you have people come in with PCOS, you might take a different approach to their meal timing than you would someone else. And I point out to my clients, because I mean, like I said, intermittent fasting is just out there for like supposed to be curing everything. Most studies done on intermittent fasting up to this point have been done on males. And I do think fasting is
Mhm.
fantastic for men. Like men do awesome
Yeah.
with intermittent fasting. Women with hormone imbalances do not. But I have successfully guided because some of my clients work like weird shifts, and they'll be getting up at like 3 or 4 in the morning, which is not helping with their hormone imbalances either. But that's just their job, so we have to work around it. So we'll slowly start to ease into waiting a little bit longer than that 1 hour after waking. But it takes some time to really ease into that, and they do make that transition quite well and are able to still meet their goals and feel really well once we get to that point of fasting.
So would you say that generally the recommendation for meal timing is you mentioned well within the hour of waking and then smaller, more frequent meals, try not to go longer than 4 hours, and then within like 2 to 3 hours before going to bed, roughly 7 p.m. That's a good cutoff time.
Yep.
Do you ever get clients who say they struggle with nighttime eating? It's difficult for them to. How do you deal with, as a registered dietitian, how do you help your clients through dealing with nighttime snacking?
Yeah. I'd say the majority of my clients will come in reporting they feel hungry at night. And when I do a nutrition assessment, I usually find that they're actually under eating during the day. Um,
Mm.
oh, I'd say the majority also of my clients come in desiring to lose some weight. And the common recommendations that are usually provided by their healthcare team is eat less and exercise more. So in their mind, they're trying to eat less as a way to lose
Mm.
weight, but they're under eating during the day. And at a certain point, your body is telling you it needs food, like it needs nutrients to function. And so you're going to start to spike some hunger signals. And I find nighttime is really common because that's when we finally sit. We're starting to rest. We're starting to listen to our bodies. So it's pretty amazing. Usually within about the first week of implementing the new timing, and ensuring that when they do eat their meals and snacks, that they're getting enough to eat. They'll start to say, I'm not hungry at night anymore. Like, I know, it's amazing when you feel your body during the day, it's not hungry at night.
That's so you might even say like the first week it might be uncomfortable. Trust the process. Go for that meal frequency. Make sure you're getting a substantial meal so that you're satisfied.
Yeah.
And that's probably, I imagine, where some of that macro balancing comes in, because if someone's not getting enough protein or fat and too much carbs, they might be
They're unsatisfied.
Yeah, unsatisfied.
Yep.
So we've got meal timing, macro balancing. Are there any other key pillars of yours when someone first gets started with you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got some supplements that I have a main three that I usually tell
Okay.
people. We can start with these. I feel pretty comfortable recommending them, even if we don't have lab work back. And I'm happy to share those as well.
Yeah,
I
I'm
do,
very curious.
yeah, I do
Go ahead.
typically then, the longer I work with clients, we'll start to either add in a few others that might be helpful for their case if they're not quite seeing the results that they are looking for. Sometimes we'll get lab work back and they'll be doing really well with the nutrition, the exercise, sleep, stress, all of those things that can impact your health. If they're really doing well with those, then I'm fine. I don't think supplements are necessarily something that people need to be on long term, but sometimes they are. It just depends what's going on. But the
Hmm.
three that I like, these are specifically my PCOS clients, but I have successfully introduced them to some of my other not diagnosed PCOS clients, but definitely have very classic insulin resistance
Hmm.
symptoms. Um, Inositol is a really good one. I like a blend of Myo and D-Chiro inositol. What inositol does is it helps with how your cells recept insulin. So basically, it's kind of helping with those receptors on the cells. We couldn't really do that only through nutrition and lifestyle. So that's a really key component as we're looking at just fixing things from the root cause, right? Berberine is another one that's really helpful for supporting the liver in its management of glucose as well as like cholesterol and toxic removal and hormone balance. So I like berberine along with inositol. And then NAC and acetylcysteine is my other favorite. It's a really powerful antioxidant, even more powerful than vitamin C or vitamin E, with helping with cell turnover. So as we're supporting all of these cells in the body, we want a nice rapid recovery so that we can start to see results faster.
And is that something that by default you'll use with every client, or is that something that you'll introduce if you see that something's not working, or does it just depend on the client?
I I would say 80 to 90% of the time I'm starting clients there, especially if they're pretty classic in the insulin resistance symptoms. Um, Inositol is really helpful for fertility. So if I have a infertility client or somebody just looking to
Mm.
support that, I might start with that and maybe not the other two. So it just kind of depends, but it's a very common trifecta of supplements that I use.
Interesting. So in that you mentioned briefly, I think I heard you say sometimes it'll be like a temporary boost that helps them, and then for some people they stay on it. How do
Yep.
you determine who is who?
This is where that individualization piece comes in. We monitor all the symptoms, make sure they're meeting their goals that we have set. If I'm working with clients on like a 6 month or a 12-month program, we'll recheck labs at least once or twice just to see if that insulin response is coming down. But I'd say most often I go by symptoms and make adjustments based on that.
Gotcha. So you've got the macro balancing, the meal timing, and supplements that, you've got three general supplements that you might use for a wide variety of your clients, but you can also tailor them and individualize as needed as they
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I haven't heard of any of those supplements before. Those are all
I
new
know. I gotta
supplements for
check
me.
them out.
Yeah, I know. I do. I need to check them out after this. Go learn about them. But that's really interesting, especially, how one of them, I'm not going to remember that, is more useful for fertility, whereas the other two are kind of general for all of them. Am I understanding that correctly? Okay.
Yep. So, yes, it's the inositol is the one
Inositol.
that's helpful for fertility specifically because it really is helpful at the ovarian level
Mm-hmm.
of the body, ovarian cells. Um, berberine is it started out being highly studied in type 2 diabetes. And because there's so many similar symptoms to type 2 diabetes and PCOS, they started to do studies in PCOS on the berberine. So that one is really helpful for the blood sugar management piece.
So a lot of the clients that we get, we refer to them as guests here at Hilton Head
I
Health because
love
we're, yeah, it's because they're coming to stay with us. It's a healthy vacation. They're also there to change their lives, live healthier. So a lot of them, all like you, come to us because they want to lose weight, and it's not uncommon to see someone with PCOS or to see someone with other hormone related issues, but the core theme that we see is weight. And I know that you said that you get a lot of clients who come to you about weight, and you mentioned insulin plays a role with that. What do you think, in your opinion, your professional opinion, what are the biggest drivers towards weight gain and weight loss from a hormone perspective?
well, I really it's insulin, and I always remind
Mm-hmm.
everybody insulin is a hormone.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we think of hormones only as like the sex hormones, like estrogen and
Right.
progesterone and testosterone, but really insulin is a hormone. Um, but I see I see lack of quality sleep and stress playing such a big role in the weight management piece of my clients. Even when clients have been implemented most all of my recommendations, if they have a really stressful job or a really stressful home life, or we're even now I'm seeing it very commonly, like past traumas of any type, it's really inhibiting the ability for them to get to their goals. And so we have to start
Mm-hmm.
digging a little bit deeper than just the nutrition and just the exercise. Like I've had clients, not that I told them they had to, but they finally identified that their jobs were actually toxic to their bodies, not just like chemically, but emotionally, and
Mm-hmm.
have found other employment because of just realizing that after working with me. And many others start to see how much the emotional baggage of life plays a part, and we can start to incorporate other team members like a counselor, a therapist to help deal with that side of things because that's outside of my scope of practice. And they finally start to feel like it's all coming together.
That is such a good point that you bring up. A lot of people will only focus on the fitness and nutrition, and sometimes quality sleep and or stress could be the biggest factor preventing them from achieving their goals for the reasons you just illustrated. And it's cool to hear that you sometimes refer them if needed. Here at our facility we have a wellness counselor, director of behavioral health, who focuses on that side of things, the traumas, the relationship health, that whole dynamic, for that very reason, because weight is really a symptom of some of those other things.
It
So,
is.
oh, go ahead.
No, I was just, it
It
is.
is. Well, so not only, I mean, we were talking a little bit before we started recording this. Not only are you a professional registered dietitian, but I feel like you're a leader in your personal life with 5 kids, running your own business. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of potential to be very stressed, difficulty managing your schedule, managing your sleep, right? I feel,
Yep.
you don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk. And you seem to be one of the happiest people I've ever interacted with. So, how do you manage your stress?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do put a lot of um, thanks to my profession. I mean, I have a master's degree in nutrition, and so nutrition is one piece of health that I don't really have to think very hard about now, where I will have clients who come in and it's all brand new. like even knowing, most people have heard of calories, but knowing how do we get calories? Well, it's from those macronutrients. What? Like, we really have to get back to the basics, because they haven't had 10 years of education like me. And so I'm very thankful for the profession that I chose to kind of help me with that. But I do like to tell my clients too, everyone is busy. We're all busy doing different things. I love working with moms because I know I can relate to them at least on some level. But it's really setting some boundaries. I could stay up until 2 a.m. doing things around my house. There is always stuff to do around my house, but I know that will not help me feel better tomorrow. So sometimes I'll leave dishes in the sink. I will leave the pile of toys because I have to get some quality sleep or I will be done for. I will admit to everyone I ever talk to, I don't like working out. It's not my most favorite thing to do. But I love going on walks, and it's my husband and I have now for ever since COVID, really last 3 years, we have prioritized most days of the week going on a walk. It's usually about 3 miles, and that's really what helps, I think, keep my hormones balanced and just keep me happy, I guess, like you noticed. So it's taking little baby steps. We all start in a different spot, but if you have a good healthcare team, a good, facility or coach or dietitian who can just help you, like, here's a sustainable goal that we can work to achieve. Once we achieve that, let's move on to the next one. It doesn't have to happen all at once, but there are those of us who can say, once it all comes together, even if it takes a couple of years, you can be happy and still meet your goals and, get through life thriving, not just surviving.
Well, it sounds like you I'm getting the impression that you have mastered setting boundaries because you're right. I mean, you can't do everything perfectly, and it sounds like you've identified your priorities well. If sleep is important, getting movement is important. Sometimes having the perfectly organized house is not going to, take precedent over those other things, and you manage to get your walks in, and you've paired your walks with bonding time with your husband, which is kind of a multi-dimensional win there. But you're very humble and thanking your profession, and while I'm sure that has contributed a lot, it's one thing I hear a lot from our guests here is a lot of the stuff they've heard before. As you mentioned earlier, it's not their first rodeo. It's many times not a lack of knowledge, it's a lack of doing it, right? So I mean, while you do have the ultimate knowledge compared to a regular person, I don't think that's the only reason that you are successful. Exactly.
Yeah. I just talked to somebody this week who she was interested in a program, and it's an online course that I have. And she's like, I just don't know if I want to I've bought programs, I've bought courses, and I'm still not, meeting my goals. And I said, would you say that you have trouble implementing what you've already learned more than you have a lack of knowledge? And she was like, yeah. And I said, well, then another online course probably isn't for you. You need some help taking what you already know. And after I talked to her, I learned she's a registered nurse, so she also has some health background. Her struggle is not the knowledge, it is the implementation. And it's the implementation around a super crazy, stressful job. My nurses and teachers are like the hardest clients because their professions have made it very hard for them to prioritize their health.
Some of the nurses probably have the night shift, or they're working really long days. Teachers teachers really bring their work home a lot them, right? They have to.
I'll talk to both these professions, like, we're trying to eat regularly and balance. And they're like, I sometimes don't even get a lunch. And I was like, I get it. Okay, we're going to come up with a solution. Even if it's like a shake or something, don't skip, but we'll make it portable and as quick and easy as we possibly can. And I think that's where the personalization and that individualization really helps people because they know they're getting that help with that implementation at that point.
So you mentioned a shake or a smoothie. So a nurse, a teacher, or just generally someone with a very demanding work schedule,
Even
it's
just
so
even my mom friends, my stay-at-home mom friends.
yeah, that's true, because they might be driving here, driving there, picking this up, picking that up, and yeah, I know you probably know what that's like firsthand.
I do a little
A
bit.
little bit. um, so it's so common for that lifestyle to just kind of not eat anything and then eat everything, right?
Yep.
At night. You mentioned shake and smoothie. What are some other things that you've seen successful clients do to help them get more frequent meals in the day?
Anything that is shelf stable, like nuts, dried fruit, even whole fresh fruit, the ones that are more portable, like a clementine, grapes, apples, bananas, things like that. It doesn't have to be complicated or fancy, but that's where knowing your macros and knowing how to balance them can help you make selections. Because you're like, oh, well, the nuts are a little bit of protein and more fat than protein, but they're protein. And then you've got your fruit, that's your carbs. And so you can do those pretty quickly and kind of move on. I have clients that we've moved to applesauce pouches, which is my mom hack. I'm like, just eat some carb for that quick energy, and then we'll do nuts, jerky, a cheese stick, whatever they choose for their protein slash fat to do along with that. That would be a snack. That is not a meal, but it can at least sustain somebody until they get their chance to have a meal.
Love that. So, worst case scenario, get a well balanced snack.
Snack. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
We
I have
call
a couple clients. They end up not really being able to have one of the three meals in a day, and so we'll do two snacks instead, a couple hours apart because that's what works for their
nice.
lifestyle. So it's all adjustable, but if you kind of know the basics of what goals you're trying to get to, then we can, finagle the rest of it.
We call our term here for healthy snack, we call those fit bites.
I like that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I like that too. Some
But
when you say that, it makes me think I will have some clients who utilize like an energy protein ball type of recipe that it's really like two golf ball sized things that they can put
yeah,
in and it's a really well balanced snack.
yeah.
So that's what I think of with a fit bite.
That's awesome. It does that is a good visual that pop
I
is just
know,
like, yeah,
yeah.
little, one of those little granola ball protein things.
Hmm. Yep.
Um, so earlier we touched on sleep a little bit. I was recently talking to a sleep expert about this, and she educated me on a detail that I did not know. Obviously, I already knew the importance of sleep and how it can affect your hunger hormones and your appetite and all of that. But one thing she mentioned that I thought was interesting is she said that if you take the same exact meal plan, the same exact caloric intake, same exact exercise level, and you take someone who's sleep deprived and someone who's well rested, this person who's sleep deprived will still be at risk of gaining weight or not losing as much weight, even though they're still theoretically eating the same amount and doing the same amount of activity. Their resting metabolism goes down, it changes, and it, I didn't realize it was to that level, and I'm curious if you've heard that before. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
have heard of that, and I don't know if there must have been something out recently, which is why it was top of mind or not, but I had read that, and I believe that it's due in part to that cortisol and insulin response that I mentioned previously, because you're going to get a lot of fat storage happening when your body's under that kind of sleep deprivation. Another tidbit that I've heard that I share with clients is we go through. I can't even remember the scientific name of whatever this process is, about 3 hours after we fall asleep. And naturally, our bodies want to go through it's kind of a repair, cellular repair process. Our body naturally wants to do it around 1 p.m. or 1 a.m. And so going to bed at like 10 is really good to help get to that rapid repair state at the time that the body wants to do it at 1 a.m. And so that's helped me kind of encourage clients with some data to start going to sleep a little bit earlier, even if you have to get up a little bit earlier in the morning to maybe get something done or, whatever. You're going to get more quality sleep if you can go to sleep a little bit earlier.
Love that. Well,
Yeah.
it sounds like you've got a very well-rounded approach with your clients, and you're tackling the hormone issue from many different angles, not just, although you're a registered dietitian, it's not just about food all the time. There are these other things that play a role.
Yeah.
Um, well, we are starting to get close to the end of our time together today. Are there any words of wisdom that you'd like to leave with our listeners today?
Yes, I would. I work with so many clients, like I mentioned, who they've tried different things in the past, and they come to me saying, um, basically, that they feel like something is wrong with them, that they can't do it, things don't work for them. And I just want to encourage people who maybe are starting to feel that way that if you can find the right care team or the right person to help you, um, you can see results and you can get to your goals, even if other approaches haven't worked in the past. So, not to give up, and it's never too late to focus on your health.
Love that. It's never too late.
It's never
That's
too late.
awesome. Never too
Yeah.
late. How can our listeners learn more about what you do, or can they continue following you, or is there anywhere they
Yeah.
can find you?
Yeah, I feel like I'm most of the common places. I have a website. It's everydaynutritionllc.com. I know it's long, but it's there. On social media for the listeners who have PCOS or suspect they might have PCOS, I'm on Instagram at manage.pcos.naturally. And for anybody else who doesn't have PCOS but wants a little insight into what I do with nutrition, dietitian underscore Tracy is where you can find me.
Lots of places we can find you.
Lots of
Love it.
places. If you want to
Yeah.
find me, you'll find me.
I love it. Well, Tracy, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure. We'll have to have you back on sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Awesome. Cool.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today for another episode of Health Talk with Tracy Mann, talking about hormones, nutrition, and the role that they play. If you enjoyed today's episode, let us know. If you have other questions for me or for Tracy, let us know. Also, remember, at the end of the day, this podcast is for you. Who else would you like us to interview? What other questions do you have that you'd like us to get answered? Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.